Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the channel and welcome to the match preview for Celtic's second game in the Champions League this season. We head to Poland to take on Shakhtar Donetsk in a game that is very interesting, very tasty after last week's results. Of course, Shakhtar going into this with a 4-1 win against Leipzig last week. Celtic lost obviously to Real Madrid. So Shakhtar, maybe the team we overlooked the most in the group. Could be interesting. I think it's going to be a good way to kind of gauge how we are and where we stand against Europe's elite this season. Before we go any further with the video, please make sure to hit like and subscribe if you haven't already. In a few hours, I will be jetting off to Polska. I will be there in Warsaw for the game tomorrow night. But I'm still in Santa Ponza for now, as you can see with the background behind me. Thank you for all the support on yesterday's video and the understanding that the videos might not be to the same standard as they are back home, but not much I can do about it. But yeah, I head over there tonight to go over and meet up with the lads, Kieran and Callum from the podcast, and we'll have a good laugh, I'd imagine, and hopefully we're there to see a winning result for Celtic. But let's talk about tomorrow night, a massive game for Celtic as we look to try and get our first points in the Champions League. I think it's worked out quite well for us. It's worked out quite decent for Celtic, and the fact that we've got the kind of big game, the difficult one against Real Madrid out the way, and then we don't really need to worry about them until we take them on again on match day 6. So we've now got to run 4 games in the middle of this group stage where we're probably looking to pick up our points, and that will hopefully start with the game against Shakhtar tomorrow night. But they're no mugs. We know it's going to be difficult. This is a competition full of top talent, and Shakhtar certainly possess a lot of that talent. So it will be difficult to say the least. It's our first away game in the group, and I think that's very interesting because this, I think now, it would be good if it was at Celtic Park right enough, don't get me wrong, but now especially, I think this is going to be the game that really shows us where we are. And I mentioned that briefly in the intro to the video. I think this game is very important to kind of understand how much we've progressed as a team in Europe, you know, and how far and how close we might be, how far or close we may be to teams like Shakhtar Donetsk and Champions League clubs. Because Real Madrid last week, we put up a hell of a fight, but deep down, I think we all kind of thought Celtic could win, but, you know, losing to Real Madrid is very understandable. And we lost in a very, you know, we lost with a lot of dignity anyway. You know, there was nothing there to be ashamed of. They gave it a right good goal. But I think now this is a game, and with it being away from home, that's really going to be the one that makes me kind of, it makes it easier to gauge where we are as a team right now. If we're good enough for the Champions, we are good enough for the Champions League. We know that, but you know, if we're actually there on the level now, we can play these teams and season after season and compete in the Champions League and build on it year after year. I think this is the game that's going to be able to, by the end of it, I'll be able to sit down and go, right, okay, that's where we are as a team right now. We are better than teams like that. We're on par with teams like that, or we've still got a bit to go. I think we'll be able to gauge it far easier from this game than from the Real Madrid game last week, because Real Madrid are the champions of Europe. It's a game that you're not expected to win, you know what I mean? So I don't know if I'm making sense to you, but I'm looking at that game with a lot of good feelings, because I feel like it will allow us to understand where Celtic are as a club right now. For the football itself on the park, the 90 minutes, let's touch on last week. Of course, unfortunately, Celtic haven't had the chance to get minutes in the legs of players before this game at the weekend, whereas Shakhtar have. They've got an advantage on us. Well, some people look at it as an advantage for us because we'll have fresher legs, we've not played. Me, personally, I think having the football and playing and keeping yourself going and momentum building, I think that's better. Shakhtar have that on their side right now. We've had to kind of skip a beat with the game being postponed at the weekend, so that's annoying. But in our last game against Real Madrid, there was so many positives to take away from it, and heading into this game against Shakhtar, I think we'll be looking to deploy a lot of the positives that we've seen from that game. You know, we defended well in that first half. We managed to hold the ball well. We looked a lot more assured in possession than what we have in previous attempts in the Champions League. So I think it's about repeating a lot of that from last week in the game tomorrow night. In the middle of the park, we have to be strong, because Shakhtar, physical side, they're going to bring a presence to the park. They're going to try and take Celtic, you know, to another level, I'd imagine, when it comes to, you know, the physicality of the game. But Celtic can play around that, and it's just about, you know, how much will I bet on it? Who's going to ask the question about changing style? Will Ange change his style being away from home in Europe? Will he? No, of course not. But someone will ask him that question at the press conference. I bet you a tenner. He must be sick of answering it. He's not going to change his style, so it's about doing what we do best. But I feel like in the middle of the park, that's where the game can be won for Celtic tomorrow night. McGregor, O'Reilly, Hatate. You know, the last week, Callum McGregor was another animal. One of his best ever performances in a Celtic shirt against Real Madrid last week. A captain's performance, a performance to be proud of in defeat. He was unbelievably good, the way that he was reading the game, both defensively and offensively. His interceptions were tremendous. The way that he would move the ball up the park was tremendous. Everything he'd done just seemed to be tremendous. And if he can just bring that to the game again tomorrow night and then use... I think O'Reilly was probably the quietest out of the three last week, surprisingly. But if Hatate and McGregor and O'Reilly can do what they do best in the middle of the park, I think will cause Shakhtar a lot of problems. I think they'll be dealing with another sort of animal. Celtic are certainly better than, you know, the rest of the teams in Ukraine. So, you know, this is a step up for Shakhtar. And, of course, they had a good result last week. But I think the football that we were playing, once again, can we stun them with it? Let's go for it from the start. Let's get the quick throw-ins. Let's press them high up the park. Let's do something that they might not... They'll have done their homework, of course, but let's bring it to them into a level that they might not expect. Catch them off guard and start the game with a bit of thunder. Let's talk about the opponents then. Let's tack? Was that me saying tack, or was that me going into an American accent? I don't know. Let's talk about Shakhtar Donetsk, who are on brilliant form at the minute, to say the least. Last week, of course, that shock scoreline. I thought it was a shock anyway. 4-1. I know Leipzig haven't started the season well. Of course, now they've sacked Tedesco, they've brought in Marco Rosa. But the 4-1 in Leipzig. And I've been looking at Shakhtar as perhaps the weakest team of our three. It's a bit of an eye-opener, and I was leaving the stadium last week and going, okay, we're in for a fight next week, and it is going to be a really tasty, a really interesting game with the form that they've been on. They also won at the weekend. They beat, let me get the name correct here, here's the pronunciation coming, Kornomorets Odessa 2-1 at the weekend, which puts them joint top of the Ukrainian Premier League. They are undefeated in their start to the season. 3 wins and a draw. 96th minute winner, by the way, at the weekend against the side that I just tried to say their name a moment ago. So, you know, they're playing well. They're riding high. Champions League has started off really well, and you know the kind of the motivation now for Shakhtar is this is their first home game. And they've got a very realistic chance of taking 6 points from the opening 2 games, which would land them in a great position. Because realistically, Madrid will win, right? If Madrid win and Donetsk win, touch wood they don't. We want Celtic to win, obviously. But see if Donetsk do win tomorrow night, the motivation is they're sitting on 6 points, while Celtic and Leipzig are sitting with nothing. So there's a real motivation in this game for Shakhtar to get the win, and they will be playing really... I imagine they're going to try and bring goals like they did to Leipzig last week, so it will be difficult. The man that we need to talk about, the man on form, Marian Shved, a name that we all remember. I think he bagged, was it 2 last week? I'm just going to make sure it wasn't 3. I can't remember if it was a hat-trick now or not. I'm just going to double-check it here just to make sure I'm getting this right. He bagged 2 last week against Leipzig in that Champions League game. He also scored again at the weekend. He only signed, I think, just before the Leipzig game. So he started his career very well with Shakhtar Donetsk. And of course, a familiar face. He was a Celtic player, Marian Shved. Never really got an opportunity. Now, I don't imagine he has any malice against us or has any reason for revenge. Hopefully not. His problem should be with Neil Lennon. It was Lennon that never gave him the chance. But Marian Shved, look, listen, we only seen him 2-3 times play for Celtic, and he was never going to get into the team, but he maybe deserved more of a chance. And remember that one time he did play, he scored an absolute screamer. It was like goal of the season. And we've just never seen him again. But he'll be the guy to look out for tomorrow against his old club with a bit of form behind him at the moment. Need to keep our eyes on him. We know he's got pace. He's got good ability, technical ability. So, you know, it could cause us problems tomorrow. In prediction then, let's move on to that segment of the preview. Once again, apologies that I don't have any of my graphics that I would normally throw up on screen. I do have like the softwares and stuff on my laptop, but it's just, you know, the editing software is just not great at all on this, so I need to get a wee upgrade on that. Team prediction then, I think Celtic will go for a relatively familiar starting 11 to take on Shakhtar Donetsk. The 11 that I've went for is Joe Hart, Josip Juranovic, Cameron Carter-Vickers, Moritz Jens, Greg Taylor, Taylor, Callum McGregor, Matt O'Reilly, Rio Hatate, Leah Labada, Kyogo and Jota. A couple of the standouts there and a couple that maybe need a wee bit more discussion. I don't think the press conference has been yet for the game, which I was hoping it would be by now. It's 3:30 for you guys back home right now, and I thought we'd maybe have had the press conference by now, but I can't hold on any longer with my flight being soon, so I've had to come out and do this. We're still awaiting updates on the likes of Carl Starfelt, even Kyogo, but Kyogo's been pictured in training, he looks fit, he was interviewed today as Player of the Month, so I'd imagine he'll be ready to go and ready to play against Shakhtar tomorrow. The one is obviously Carl Starfelt, but when asked before Real Madrid, he did say it looked as though it was going to be a one that keeps him out for a couple of weeks. I don't imagine he'll be back, so I'm going with Moritz Jens as a centre half. And outside of that, I've gone Kyogo over Giacomakis if he's fit. I think he's going to start. But of course, he was deprived of that big opportunity against Real Madrid last week when he went off in the first couple of minutes. So I think it's another big opportunity for him in this game. I think he'll suit the game really well. And Abada on the right as well. Yeah, can't drop him at the moment. So that is the 11 that I am going for. And to finish it all off, I may as well do my score predictions for the game. I hate doing the score predictions for the Champions League games. I'll be there. I'll be in the stadium. I'll be watching it. I cannot wait. And hopefully I can channel somewhat the luck that was there in Lazio a few years ago, in Rome a few years ago. Not so much Leverkusen last year. Although we did play really well, I'm hoping that we can get a good bit of form there to tomorrow due to my presence. No, I'm joking. I'm going to go for a win. Why would I not go for a win? What would be the point? Celtic 2, Shakhtar 1. Playing it safe. A respectable scoreline. I think it'll be a really good game, a really tough game. I think for the neutral it could be very exciting tomorrow, but that is what I'm going to go with for my score prediction. And that's it for the match preview. I'm going to jump in and get changed and ready and whatever to go and get my flight. Listen, I don't know if anybody follows me on Twitter. Well, obviously people follow me on Twitter. I don't know if you specifically watching this video right now, if you follow me on Twitter, but I flew here to Santa Pons on Saturday. I'm flying to Warsaw tonight. I'm then flying back to Santa Pons on Thursday, and then I fly back to Glasgow on Tuesday. So it's a fun 10 days, to say the least. But anyway, enough rubbing it in from me. Like and subscribe if you've enjoyed the video. Thank you all so much for checking it out. Enjoy the game. I'll be back on the channel with a match reaction on Thursday. I know it's a little bit late, but if you've been to these European away games, you know what it's like. You get to the game, you watch the game, you leave the game. The time I get out of the stadium back to the Airbnb, all the rest, it'll be far too late to justify uploading at that time. So Thursday, the match reaction will be up on the channel. I'll try and get something out tomorrow, but it just won't be my reaction to the game, just so you all know. Right, like and subscribe. That's me done. I'll see you all next time.